Somebody made it through last month because of you. You spend time with your family? Sure I do. Good. Because a man who doesn't spend time with his family could never be a real man. You don't know them. You've never seen their face. If you passed them on the street tomorrow, you'd walk right by each other and neither of you would feel a thing. But somewhere in a city you've maybe never been to, a person hit a wall that should have ended them. The same kind of wall you hit, and they survived it. Not because they were stronger than you were, not because they had more help, because something you went through changed something in the structure around you. And that change rippled outward in ways you will never ever see. And it reached them just in time. I know that sounds abstract. Let me make it concrete. Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate so we can buy. We don't need. When you survived what you survived, you didn't just survive it for yourself. You altered the pattern. You proved something was possible that wasn't proven before, at least not in the specific corner of the world you exist in. Maybe it was the way you left. Maybe it was the boundary you set that nobody in your family had ever set before. Maybe it was the conversation you had with one person, just one, where you told the truth about what was happening to you. And that person carried what you said into their own life and mentioned it to someone else, not your name, not your details, just the shape of the thing. And that someone else mentioned it to someone else. I'll give you anything you ask. We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me, clear's throat, for counsel. And down the line, 5 or 6 connections away from you, a person who was about to make the worst decision of their life heard something, a phrase, a perspective, a single reframing of a situation that made them pause long enough to choose differently. That's how it actually works. Not the movie version where you get a letter from a stranger saying you saved my life. The real version where you never find out. Where the person you helped doesn't even know there's a you to thank. And I want to sit with that for a second because there's something in it that I think you need to hear. Your pain had a use. Not the use you wanted. Not the version where it all makes sense in a highlight reel and somebody hands you a trophy for getting through it. A quieter use. An invisible one. The kind that doesn't show up on a resume or a social media post or in any conversation you'll ever have. But it's real and it's already happened. And the fact that you can't prove it doesn't make it less true. It actually makes it more important. Because it means the impact wasn't about you getting credit. It was about the thing itself mattering. Raymond was what did you want to be answering? Rain, let me tell you who I think used your survival guide because you deserve to have a face for this, even if it's one I'm making up. There's someone out there, probably younger than you, probably in the early phase of the exact thing you already got through, and they're terrified. They're doing the math you did at 3 a.m. The math where every option leads to a dead end, and the only logical conclusion is that this is just how it's going to be forever. They have the same tightness in their chest you had, the same way of staring at the ceiling and running the same 4 thoughts on a loop until the sun comes up and they're close to the edge of whatever the edge was for you. You know which edge I mean? And then something interrupts the loop. Not dramatically. Not an angel or a sign or a voice from the sky. Something small, a comment somebody makes, an article somebody shares, a friend who says, "Hey, I knew someone who went through something like this and they're okay now." They don't say your name, they barely remember the details. But the shape of your story, stripped of everything personal, lands in this person's ears at the exact moment they needed a reason to believe that the wall has a door in it somewhere. That was you. That was your pain, composted down into something unrecognizable, fed through a chain of people who only half remembered it, arriving in a stranger's life as the thinnest possible thread of evidence that survival is an option. You didn't write the guide, you lived it. And living it was enough for it to travel. You get out of the car. You walk over to her. You bring her over to the car. Now, here's where I'm going to be honest with you because I think you can take it. You will probably never get confirmation of this. That's not how it works. There's no system that tracks the ripple effects of one person's survival. Nobody is going to show up at your door with a thank you card from a stranger in another city. The universe doesn't do receipts for this kind of thing. And I know that's frustrating because part of the reason suffering is so unbearable is the feeling that it's pointless, that it's just happening to you for no reason. And what you want more than anything is proof that it counted. I can't give you that proof. Nobody can. But I can tell you something about probability that might help. You exist in a network. Every person you've ever talked to, every room you've ever walked into, every interaction you've had where you told even a fraction of the truth about what you were going through that created a data point, and data points travel. They get passed along, paraphrased, diluted, remixed, and eventually absorbed by people who have no idea where the original signal came from. The bigger the thing you survived, the stronger the signal. The more honestly you spoke about it even once, even badly, the further it traveled. That's not mysticism. That's just how information works in a connected species. You are a node in a network, whether you want to be or not. And the signal you put out when you survive something you weren't supposed to survive is still propagating right now. And here's the part that should stop you for a second. You didn't even have to be good at telling your story. You didn't have to be articulate or brave or composed. Some of the strongest signals in the network are the messy ones. The ones where you told the wrong person at the wrong time in the wrong way, and it still landed somewhere it needed to land, because the power was never in the delivery. It was in the fact that you were still standing when you said it. So the question isn't, did your pain matter? It did. That's settled. The question is, can you let it matter without needing to see the evidence? And that's harder than it sounds because we're wired to need feedback, to need the loop closed, to need somebody to look us in the eye and say, yes, power of life and death, about 8 swordsmen who rule. Why do we pretend kings hold the power? I've decided I don't like riddles. What happened to you was real, and yes, it meant something, and yes, it helped. You got a version of that from the psychologist or the friend or the one person who actually listened. But this is different. This is the version where the help went out into the world, unsigned, uncredited. And you have to be okay with that. You have to trust that the ripple happened even though you can't see where it landed. I think you can do that. I think you might actually be the specific kind of person who can, because if you've made it this far in this video, you're already someone who's learned to operate without proof. You did that during the worst of it, didn't you? You kept going without any evidence that keeping going would lead anywhere. You survived on faith so thin you couldn't even call it faith. You'd have called it stubbornness or spite or not knowing what else to do. But it was enough. And if that was enough to get you through, then trusting that your pain had a use you'll never see is not actually that big of a leap. Here's what I want you to carry out of this. You are not the protagonist of a story that only matters if you win at the end. You're a signal and a network. And the signal doesn't need your name attached to work. It doesn't need applause or credit or a crowd watching it ripple outward. It just needs to have been sent. And you sent it every time you told the truth when it would have been easier to pretend. Every time you survived a night that logic said you shouldn't have. Every time you existed in a room and let people see, even for a second, what it looks like on the other side of the thing they're afraid of. You sent a signal, and somewhere right now, somebody you will never meet is alive because of it. They don't know your name. They don't know your face. They don't know the nights it cost you. But they're here, and so are you. And that, whether anybody ever says it to you out loud or not, is what it looks like when pain becomes something other than pain. It doesn't become purpose. That's too clean a word. It becomes material. Building material. The kind somebody else uses to put a floor under their feet when their own ground gives out. You already gave it away. You didn't even know you were giving it.